If my yard was a high school, the Puddle would be the kid who always has mustard on his shirt. It's not hurting anyone, it's just there, and kind of damp. It's lived in the front yard, just left of the walkway, for as long as I've lived here. It's a depression, a geographical reality, a low spot. I'm a guy who sells mid-level enterprise software. I'm not a civil engineer, and I'm certainly not God. I can't just smite the ground and command it to be level. I was out there on a perfectly nice Tuesday morning, coffee in hand, having my daily one-sided conversation with it. "Look, Puddle," I said, "we need to talk. This isn't working for me. It's been sunny for 3 days. You're supposed to be gone. You have one job, evaporation, and you are failing spectacularly." The Puddle, in response, just sat there, a murky, 12-inch-wide patch of wet dirt and disillusioned grass. "Are you having a staring contest with the mud again? You're going to be late." That was Sarah, my wife, speaking from the porch. She was already in work mode. Blazer, laptop bag, and an expression that said she'd seen all my nonsense before and was no longer impressed. "I'm not staring," I called back. "I'm communicating. I'm trying to will it into evaporating. It's not working. I think it's mocking me." "I think you're mocking me," she said. "We've talked about this. A bag of topsoil. $10. Problem solved." "It's the principle, Sarah. It's nature. It wants to be here. Who am I to fight topography?" "You're the guy who's going to get a letter from the HOA," she said, pointing with her chin. I followed her gaze, and my blood went cold. Across the street, standing on the sidewalk like a predator that had just smelled a weak antelope, was Brenda. Brenda is our HOA president. She's a woman who wears a Homeowners Association logo polo shirt on weekends. Her hair is a rigid blonde helmet that looks like it could deflect small arms fire. She wasn't just looking at the Puddle. She was documenting it. She held up her phone, angled it, zoomed in, and tapped. A camera flash. She flashed my Puddle. She took 3 more pictures from different angles, made a note on the clipboard she was carrying. Who carries a clipboard on a Tuesday? And then, without so much as a wave, she spun on her orthopedic, sensible-souled heel and marched away. "Oh, great," I muttered, sipping my coffee. "The Fun Police is building a case." "Topsoil," Sarah said, walking back inside. $10. 2 days later, the letter arrived. I should have known it was coming. The air had a certain beigeness to it. I checked the mail on my way in from work, shuffling past the usual junk. Pizza coupons, a flyer for a revolutionary new gutter system. And there it was. It wasn't a normal envelope. It was thick, stiff, beige cardstock, the kind of paper that costs $2 a sheet and is designed to make you feel poor and irresponsible. My name and address were printed in a severe, all-caps serif font. No return address. It didn't need one. It radiated authority. I walked into the kitchen, where Sarah was chopping an onion, and held it up between 2 fingers. "It's here," Sarah sighed, wiping her hands on a towel. "Well, open it. I want to know what the official charge is. Possession of damp earth?" I tore the unnecessarily thick envelope. The letter inside was even thicker. "Dear Mr. Johnson," I read aloud, adopting my most pompous, bureaucratic voice. "This letter serves as your second notice regarding a violation of the covenants, conditions, and restrictions of the Whispering Pines Homeowners Association." "Wait," Sarah interrupted. "What was the first notice?" "Brenda glaring at me from her minivan was the first notice," I said. "Where was I?" Yes. A violation of the covenants, conditions, and restrictions, specifically Bylaw 7.14. persistent standing water and/or unsightly lawn depression. I paused for effect. They named it. Unsightly lawn depression. That sounds like a medical condition. I'm sorry, sir, but your yard has unsightly lawn depression. It's terminal. Sarah rolled her eyes, but she was smiling. Go on. The aforementioned violation, see attached photo exhibit A, B, and C, has been noted by the Architectural Review Committee. That's just Brenda. And has been deemed an eyesore, a potential breeding ground for mosquitoes, and a detriment to community property values. A fine of $50 hussars, $50 has been levied against your property. $50, Sarah yelped. For a puddle? I'm not finished, I said, holding up a hand. Here's the kicker. Failure to cure the violation in 72 hours from the date of this letter will result in additional fines and penalties, up to and including the placement of a lien on your property. Cure. They want me to cure it, like it's got lawn herpes. I slapped the letter down on the counter. They find my puddle. They find it. What's next? A ticket for excessive dandelions? A citation for non-uniform grass blade height? Are they going to find Mr. Henderson's slightly too tall garden gnome? I think not. Okay, settle down, lawn litigator, Sarah said. Just go talk to her. Reason with her. Reason? With Brenda? That's like reasoning with a parking meter. It just wants your money. But I did it. I grabbed the letter and the 3 high-gloss 8x10 photos of my puddle that she had so thoughtfully included, and I stormed across the street. I hammered on her door, a perfectly painted HOA-approved shade of ecru. She opened it, already in her evening HOA logo polo. It was navy blue. She was holding a large glass of iced tea. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Mark, she said, a little too brightly, I was wondering when you'd stop by. Did you get your notice? Brenda, really? A fine? For a puddle? It's been raining. It's a low spot. Mark, she said, taking a slow sip. It's not a puddle. It's a violation. The bylaws are the bylaws. It's a breeding ground for mosquitoes. It's 12 inches wide. The only thing it's breeding is my disappointment. Can't I just, wait for a sunny week? It'll dry out. Bylaw 714 is very clear, she said, her smile tightening. Persistent. It's been there for, forever. It lowers property values. Who's valuing? Are you bringing appraisers by? Well, Bob, the house is great, but I see an 8-inch diameter wet spot. That's gonna dock 'em 10 grand. The bylaws are clear, she repeated, a perfect, polite, infuriating brick wall. You have 72 hours, or we can discuss it at the next review meeting, in 6 months. The fines, of course, will continue to accrue daily. She smiled, a perfect, toothless reptilian smile. Cure the violation, Mark. Good day. She shut the door. Not a slam. A soft, firm click. It was the most final sound I'd ever heard. I am, at heart, a reasonable man. I'm also a cheap one. The thought of a $50 fine was annoying, but the thought of accruing daily was terrifying. I decided to cure the violation. The easy way. I'm going to Home Depot, I announced to Sarah. For topsoil, $10, problem solved. Her smug, satisfied, I told you so look was almost as irritating as the letter. I drove to Home Depot. I bought a 40-pound bag of premium lawn soil. I felt powerful. I was a man taking charge of his topography. I got home, tore the bag open, and unceremoniously dumped the entire 40 pounds onto the puddle. a cloud of peat moss and something plumed into the air. I raked it flat. I stomped on it. I even grabbed the hose and sprinkled it a bit, just to make it look settled. "There," I said to the empty yard. "Cured." It didn't look good, exactly. It looked like my lawn had a large brown rectangular Band-Aid, but it was dry. The puddle was gone, buried under a mound of dirt. Violation. Cured. And then it rained. It wasn't a sprinkle. It was a full-on, biblical end-of-days deluge. The kind of rain that makes you check if you have enough canned goods. It rained all night. The next morning, I looked out the window, coffee in hand, feeling pretty good. The 72-hour window wasn't even up yet. I was a model citizen. I opened the blinds, and I froze. It wasn't a puddle anymore. The 40 pounds of premium soil had mixed with the existing mud and the metric ton of rainwater. It had spread. It was now a swamp. It was 3 feet wide, black, and glistening with a sinister, malevolent sheen. The Band-Aid was now a festering, open wound. "It looks worse," Sarah said, coming up behind me. "It does not," I said, my voice tight. "It looks rustic. It's just settling. It's settling into a new, larger form. It's evolving, Mark." I was still staring at it when the mailman came. He had to hop over a new, muddy tributary that was snaking its way toward the sidewalk. He put the mail in the box, and I saw it. The beige. I ran out barefoot and snatched it. I tore it open right there in the driveway. "Dear Mr. Johnson, we note your attempt to cure violation 7.14. Unfortunately, your attempt was unsuccessful. Violation 7.14 uncured. Fine. $100. My blood pressure spiked. "Furthermore," I read, my voice shaking, "your unapproved cure has resulted in a new violation. Bylaw 8.02. Unapproved landscaping alterations. Soil mounds. Fine, $50. Total due $150. You now have 48 hours to cure all violations." I was speechless. I was being fined for the puddle and for the fix for the puddle. I sat on my porch steps, the rain starting again, the 2 beige letters in my hand. I was defeated. I was $150 in the hole to a woman who weaponized clipboards. And that's when it happened. A little sparrow, braving the drizzle, landed right in the middle of my new $150 swamp. It hopped around. It dipped its head. It took a bath, splashing water and mud onto the surrounding, and already very damp, grass. It chirped, ruffled its feathers, and flew off, looking refreshed. I watched it go. And then I looked at the letter. "A breeding ground," I whispered. "What?" Sarah called from the door. "She said it was a breeding ground, an eyesore. But to that bird, it was a spa, a day spa." I stood up. A new energy was coursing through me. She wants it cured. She wants it gone. What if I didn't remove the puddle? What if I upgraded it? I ran inside, past a confused-looking Sarah, and grabbed my laptop. I opened the HOA website and found the 300-page PDF of our covenants, conditions, and restrictions. I bypassed Section 12, Approved Holiday Decoration Timelines, and Section 15, Mailbox Colors, Beige, Taupe, or Grega. I found what I was looking for. Section 9, Landscaping and Structures. I scrolled. 901, Pools, Prohibited without ARC Review. 9.02, Fountains, Prohibited. 9.03, Man-made ponds, strictly prohibited. Aha, man-made. But my puddle wasn't man-made. It was an act of God, a topographical quirk. And then I saw it. The loophole. Bylaw 9.04. Ornamental lawn decorations are permitted without review so long as they do not exceed 24 inches in height. "Honey," I called out, a slow, beautiful, terrible grin spreading across my face. "Do you still have that fantasy football money I lost to Kevin?" "Yeah," she called back. "Why?" "I'm cashing it in. I need him to build me a natural water feature." Kevin pulled up in his truck. Kev's Classy Cuts, the next afternoon. His truck is objectively the least classy thing in the neighborhood. It's a 20-year-old Ford, rust-colored, not by paint, and it always sounds like it's 10 seconds away from a major internal organ failure. Kevin, who is built like a friendly refrigerator, hopped out. He's my oldest friend, my fantasy football commissioner, and the only landscaper I know who would agree to a creative project. He also owed me big time after I let him win the championship last year by forgetting to bench my injured quarterback. "All right, Mark," he said, slapping me on the back and sending a shockwave through my skeleton. "Where's the emergency? You sounded unhinged on the phone." "I am unhinged, Kev. And this," I said, gesturing with a grand sweep of my arm, "is the emergency." Kevin stared at the muddy, 3-foot-wide swamp. He looked at me. He looked back at the swamp. "Bro, it's a puddle." "It is not a puddle," I said, offended. "It is 2 violations. Bylaw 7.14 and 8.02. It's a $150 fine and accruing daily." "So?" Kevin went to his truck and grabbed a shovel. "This is a 10-minute job. We fill it, we throw some seed on it, we drink a beer." "No," I shouted, a little too loud. I put my hand on the shovel. "Put the shovel away. We're not filling it. We're enhancing it." Kevin paused, shovel in midair. "Enhancing? Mark, this is mud. You can't enhance mud. You can remove mud. You can hate mud. You can't enhance it." "Not with that attitude," I said. I led him to the garage, where my purchases from that morning were hiding. "We're not removing it. We're defining it. I want a pond." Kevin dropped the shovel. "A pond? Like, with koi? Mark, the permit for that? The HOA. Brenda will crucify you. She'll literally flay you on the community-owned tennis court." "Not a pond, I said, pulling a tarp off my supplies. "A micro-pond. A natural water feature." "We're not building anything, Kevin. We are merely ornamenting what nature has already provided. With these," I held up 2 large bags of smooth gray river rocks. "And this," I held up a small 10-gallon pre-formed pond liner. The kind you buy to put a tiny, sad-looking fountain in. Kevin stared at the supplies. He looked back at me. A slow, dawning comprehension spread across his face, followed by a grin that was 90% terror and 10% pure, unadulterated joy. "You're insane," he whispered. "I'm a visionary. You're going to get us both arrested." "It's a civil matter, Kev." "I love it," he said, grabbing the liner. "What's the plan?" The plan, it turned out, was chaos. "Okay, so we dig a hole just big enough for the liner," I said. "Then we use the extra dirt to, I don't know, landscape the edges." "We're digging in. A mud puddle," Kevin noted. "This is gonna suck." And it did. It sucked gloriously. The moment Kevin's shovel bit into the ground, it made a sound, a thick, wet schlurp that sounded like the very bowels of the earth letting go. It's thicker than I thought, he grunted, heaving a shovelful of black muck. Keep going, I cheered, holding his beer. You're a professional. You're paying for my dry cleaning, he yelled. We dug for 20 minutes. We were both covered. I looked like I'd lost a fight with a peat bog. Then I heard the sound every homeowner dreads. Psst, clang. Kevin froze. I froze. A fine, high-pressure mist of water shot out of the hole, directly into Kevin's face. Mark, he said, water dripping from his nose. Yeah, Kev? Did you, by any chance, call 811 before we decided to dig a 2-foot hole in your front yard? No. Because I think, he said, wiping his face, you just found your sprinkler line. Oh crap, crap. Sarah's going to kill me. Turn it off. Turn it off. Turn what off? He yelled, as the hole began to fill rapidly. The main. Go turn off the main. I sprinted to the side of the house, fumbled with the valve, and twisted it. The glorious high-pressure pshh died down to a pathetic gurgle. We stood there, breathing heavily, soaked to the bone, staring at a hole that was now definitively a water feature. Across the street, Brenda's curtain twitched. Okay, Kevin said, taking a long pull from his beer. So, the good news is, we have a water source for the pond. We just have to fix the, gushing leak, I said. That's a tomorrow problem. Let's get this liner in. It took another hour. We had to dig around the broken sprinkler pipe. We managed to jam the liner in. We arranged the river rocks around it. It was something. It was a small, black, plastic tub, surrounded by wet rocks sitting in the middle of a giant mud pit. It's a masterpiece, Kevin said, stepping back. It's minimalist. It's a really nice-looking hole. It's not finished, I said, a wild look in my eye. It's just a water feature. That's still a violation. It needs to be more. More? What's more? Kevin asked, looking nervous. It needs life. It needs inhabitants. Mark, no. Don't buy fish. They'll be dead in an hour, or Brenda will poison them. I'm not getting fish, Kev, I said, walking toward my car. Fish are boring. You can't just buy what I was planning to buy at the local PetSmart. PetSmart is for hamsters and dog food, and people who think aquarium is a hobby. What I needed was specialized. I had to drive 30 miles out of town, past the suburbs, past the exurbs, to a place where the roads are mostly dirt, and the welcome signs have bullet holes in them. I pulled up to Gus's Feed and Farm Supply. The building itself looked like it had been cured with a bag of dirt. The air smelled of hay, fertilizer, and existential dread. I walked in. A bell on the door announced my presence with a sad, dull clank. The only other person in the store was a man behind the counter, who looked like he'd been carved out of a very angry piece of wood. He had a magnificent gray beard, overalls, and he was chewing on what looked like an entire cigar. He just stared at me. My clean, suburban polo shirt and my non-mud-caked sneakers might as well have been a spacesuit. Help you? He grunted. Hi, I said, trying to sound casual. How's it going? I'm here for some ducks. The man, Gus, I presumed, stopped chewing. He didn't move a muscle. He just processed. Ducks, he repeated. It wasn't a question. It was a statement, a judgment. Yes, I said, my voice squeaking. Small ones, like for A pond. A micro-pond. So, micro-ducks? Gus squinted at me. You mean ducklings? Yes, ducklings. That's the word. Do you have those? He let out a long, slow sigh and gestured with his head toward the back of the store. Heat lamps. In the trough. He went back to ignoring me. I walked to the back, and there, under the warm glow of a red bulb, was a large metal tub filled with wood shavings and pure, unadulterated, quacking chaos. There must have been 50 of them. Tiny, yellow, fluffy, and loud. This was it. This was the nuclear option. I stood there for 10 minutes. Paralyzed. This was a line I was about to cross. I was no longer a disgruntled homeowner. I was becoming an ornamental bird enthusiast. I grabbed a small, slotted cardboard box and, with surprising difficulty, managed to corral 2 of the little yellow furballs. They seemed feisty. I liked that. I brought the box to the counter. The quack, quack, quack was comically loud. Gus didn't even look up. He just pointed to a sign. Ducklings, $5 each. You got any advice? I asked, pulling out my wallet. Gus finally looked at me. He took the cigar thing out of his mouth. Son, you can't just have ducks. They're loud. They poop on everything. They grow up. They're ducks. They're assholes. They sound perfect, I said. I'll take 2. And a small bag of duck food? He rang me up. $10 for the ducks, $5 for a bag of waterfowl starter crumble. Good luck, he grunted as I walked out with my quacking box. It did not sound like a sincere good luck. It sounded like a, you're going to regret this good luck. The drive home was an experience. The ducks were not happy about the box. They were peeping and quacking and scratching. I turned the radio up. I pulled into my garage, hiding the car. I grabbed the box. The quacking was echoing. I walked into the kitchen. Sarah was at the table, paying bills. Mark, what's that sound? Hey, honey, you'll never guess what I found at the store. She looked at the box. It was quacking. It was vibrating. Mark, she said, her voice dangerously calm. What's in the box? The cure, honey, I said, with a little too much pep. The cure for violation 7.14 and 8.02. Mark, so help me God, if you brought home a frog. I gently placed the box on the table and opened the flaps. 2 tiny, yellow, fluffy heads popped up, blinked in the light, and let out a simultaneous, ear-splitting quack. Sarah stood up. She stared at the ducks. She stared at me. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. This, I said, is bylaw. And this, I pointed to the other one, is ordinance. Brenda said the Puddle was a breeding ground. I'm just helping it breed the right things. Oh, no, Sarah whispered, finally finding her voice. Mark, no. You did not. You bought ducks. Ornamental birds, honey, I said, picking up the box. And they're going to love their new micro-pond. I felt like a general executing the final phase of a brilliant multi-stage attack. Phase 1, the Puddle, was a failure. Phase 2, the dirt, was a tactical retreat. Phase 3, the pond, was the setup. Phase 4, the ducks, was the checkmate. I carried the quacking box out to the front yard. Kevin was gone, having fixed the sprinkler line, by which he meant capped it off, and said he'd be back later to really fix it, which I knew meant never. The micro-pond was full, thanks to the broken pipe. It was a shimmering 10-gallon tub of black plastic surrounded by mud and rocks. It was awful, but it was about to become art. I got on my knees, opened the box, and gently, one by one, lifted out bylaw and ordinance. I set them at the edge of the pond. They looked at the water. They looked at each other. They looked at me as if to say, "This is it? This is the sanctuary?" And then bylaw, the braver of the two, took a hesitant hop and splashed into the water. He loved it. He immediately started paddling, dipping his head, splashing his tiny wings. Ordinance, not to be outdone, jumped in right after him. For the next 5 minutes, it was a blur of yellow fluff and flying water. They quacked. They splashed. They were adorable. And they were loud. But I wasn't done. I jogged back to the garage and retrieved my final piece. A small, wooden, professionally made sign, which I had routered myself. I hammered it into the damp soil right next to the pond. It read, "Johnson Family Micro Pond and Avian Sanctuary." I stepped back, crossed my arms, and admired my work. The muddy pit, the cheap liner, the rocks, the sign, and the 2 ecstatically quacking ducks. It was the most beautiful, petty, and legally gray thing I had ever created. It took exactly 15 minutes. Like a heat-seeking missile of pure indignation, Brenda stormed across the street. Her clipboard was in her hand, and she was wielding it like a weapon. She wasn't walking. She was marching. I had just sat down on the porch with a tall glass of lemonade. I took a sip. "Mark!" she barked. She didn't say hello. She didn't say good afternoon. Just, "Mark." "Brenda," I said, giving her a friendly wave. "Lovely day, isn't it? The rain finally stopped." She ignored me. She was staring at the pond. Her eyes were wide, her face a pale, confused mask. She was trying to process what she was seeing. "What is that?" she finally managed, pointing a trembling finger. "That, Brenda," I said, taking another leisurely sip, "is my micro-pond. I cured the puddle just like you asked. No more standing water. It's moving water now. See? The ducks are splashing. It's aerated." Brenda's face started to shift from confused to apoplectic. You can't," she sputtered. "That's a pond. That's bylaw 9.03. Man-made ponds, strictly prohibited. That's an unapproved structure." I held up a finger. "Ah, there's where you're mistaken, Brenda. It's not a pond. It's a micro-pond. And it's not a structure. It's ornamentally defined. And per bylaw 904, I smiled my brightest smile, ornamental lawn decorations under 24 inches are fully permitted. That liner? 10 inches deep. The sign? 18 inches tall. I'm fully compliant." She was shaking. The ducks, Mark. The ducks. That is livestock. Bylaw 1120. No chickens, swine, or livestock of any kind. This was it. The moment I'd been waiting for. "Ah, I was hoping you'd bring that up," I said. I reached into my back pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was a printout from the city's municipal website. "See, Brenda, you're confusing HOA bylaws with city ordinances. And in a legal conflict, municipal code always supersedes. I had a long chat with Brenda, a different Brenda, a very helpful one, down at the city clerk's office this morning." I unfolded the paper. According to City of our generic suburb name, Ordinance 14.5.1, ducks, geese, and other waterfowl, when kept as pets, are classified as ornamental birds, not livestock. Livestock is defined as animals raised for agricultural production. These ducks, I said, gesturing to bylaw and ordinance, who were now trying to eat a rock, are purely for ornamental purposes. Brenda's mouth was opening and closing like a fish. And, I continued, the ordinance is very clear. As long as they are properly contained, which they are in their sanctuary, and are limited to a flock of, I squinted at the paper, 4. I only have 2. I'm under the limit. I'm a model citizen. I'm practically a conservationist. Brenda's face was now a shade of red I had only seen on overripe tomatoes. She was vibrating. She lifted her phone and started taking pictures. Dozens of them. "You will be hearing from our lawyer, Mark," she shrieked, her voice cracking. This is an abomination. It's a nuisance." "You say abomination, I say eco-friendly water feature," I called back as she stomped off, her sensible shoes squelching in the mud patch she hadn't found. "Have a great day, Brenda." I took another long sip of lemonade. Bylaw and ordinance quacked in agreement. There's one thing Gus, the feed store guy, was 100% right about. Ducks are loud. They are unbelievably loud. And they are loud at times of day that are, frankly, offensive. I am now an expert on the duck wake-up schedule. They don't wait for the sun. They wait for, I don't know, some ancient quacking signal. 5 o'clock a.m., on the dot. It wasn't a gentle quack. It was a series of full-throated machine gun quack, 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 quacks that sounded like a very small, very angry saxophone section was rehearsing in my front yard. I didn't mind. I put in earplugs. Sarah minded, but she was too amused by the situation to be truly angry. Brenda minded. On the third day, at 5:15 a.m., I was jolted awake not by the quacking, but by a new, more sinister light, the red and blue strobes of a police car, painting my bedroom wall. "Oh, crap," I muttered, fumbling for my robe. She did it. The crazy woman actually did it. I went to the door. 2 officers, one older and looking like he'd seen it all, the other younger and trying not to smile, were walking up my driveway. They were studiously avoiding the micro-pond, where bylaw and ordinance were quacking at the flashing lights, probably thinking it was a party. "Mr. Johnson?" the older one, Officer Davis, asked, reading from a notepad. "That's me. What's the problem, officers? Is everything okay?" "Sir, we got a call from a neighbor." He sighed, a deep, "It's too early for this" sigh. About a noise complaint. Something about, aggressive waterfowl?" I had to bite my cheek. "Aggressive? No. Bylaw? Ordinance? They're not aggressive. They're ornamental. Enthusiastic, maybe, but not aggressive." The younger one, Officer Chen, shined his flashlight at the pond. He looked at the ducks. He looked at the little wooden sign. He looked at me. He was definitely smiling now. "Sir, did you install a pond for these ducks?" "Officer, I am a victim of circumstance. I had a puddle. The HOA fined me. I tried to fix it. They fined me again. I'm just a man trying to live in harmony with nature. And also, this was the best part, this." I handed him the other copy of the city ordinance, the one I kept in my robe pocket. Officer Davis took it, put on his reading glasses, and read it under the flashlight. He read it all the way through. "Huh," he said, handing it back. "Ornamental birds. Well, I'll be. "They are a nuisance!" a new voice shrieked from the darkness. We all turned. Brenda was standing on her lawn, in a pink bathrobe, her hair in a net. She was incandescent with rage. "They're vermin! Ask them to do their job. That's a noise violation." Officer Davis sighed again and turned to her. "Ma'am, I understand you're upset, but—" he checked his watch. "The city noise ordinance doesn't start until 10 p.m. and ends at 7 a.m. These ducks, they're quacking at 5:15 a.m. "Exactly!" Brenda shrieked. "It's 5:15 a.m. "Right," Officer Davis said, "which is outside the quiet hours ordinance. Legally, they can be as loud as they want." Officer Chen coughed, a sound that sounded suspiciously like a laugh. But, Brenda stammered. "Ma'am," Officer Chen called out, his voice polite but firm. "They aren't breaking any city laws. As far as we can tell, this is a civil matter, between you and your HOA." "But I am the HOA," she wailed. Officer Davis just tipped his cap. "Have a good morning, sir," he said to me. He turned and added quietly, "And, good luck." The two officers walked back to their car, got in, and drove away, their lights blessedly off. It was me, my robe, and the ducks. Across the street, Brenda was just standing. A statue of pure, unadulterated, and legally impotent fury. Bylaw let out a triumphant quack. I went inside, got the waterfowl starter crumble, and gave them a victory breakfast. Mark 3, Brenda 0. Brenda's lawyer must have told her what the cops did, that I was, technically, in the right, because the next letter I got wasn't a fine. It was a summons. "Notice of emergency HOA meeting," it read. "Mandatory attendance. Agenda item 1. The Puddle problem, bylaw violations, and community-threatening waterfowl." She was going for the public trial. She was going to try and shame me into submission. The meeting was held on a Thursday night in the community clubhouse, a beige, soulless room that smelled like stale coffee and old carpet. When Sarah and I walked in, the place was packed. Everyone was there. Mr. Henderson, the old guy from down the street, the young couple with the triplets, the guy who washes his Porsche every single day, Brenda and the 3 other board members, who I call the Nodders, were sitting at a long folding table at the front. Brenda had a laptop and a projector. She had a PowerPoint. "Oh my God," Sarah whispered to me as we took a seat in the back. "She has graphs." Brenda banged a small plastic gavel. "This emergency meeting of the Whispering Pines HOA is now in session." She clicked a button. The first slide popped up on the projector screen. It was one of the 8x10 high-gloss photos of my original Puddle. The title, in ominous red text, read, "The Puddle Problem, a Threat to Our Community." "As you all know," Brenda began, her voice dripping with faux concern, "we, the board, are tasked with maintaining the beauty, safety, and property values of our neighborhood." For the next 20 minutes, she presented. She clicked through slides. Slide 2. A picture of a mosquito. Breeding ground for disease. Slide 3. A blurry photo of my soil mound. Unapproved alterations. Slide 4. A terrifying, zoomed-in, red-eyed photo of bylaw. Invasion of livestock. "He calls them ornamental birds," she said, her voice full of scorn. "I call them pests. Pests that are noisy. She clicked to slide 5. It was a sound wave graph. "This," she said, "is a decibel reading I took from my bedroom window at 5:15 a.m. As you can see, the quacking noise, indicated here in red, peaks at 90 decibels. That's the same level as a lawnmower. It's unacceptable." Slide 6. A pie chart. "This is the poop-to-lawn ratio." "I'm sorry," I muttered to Sarah. "The what?" "This," Brenda said, pointing to the chart with a laser pointer, "is the projected amount of fecal waste these creatures will deposit on the common areas. It is unsustainable. It is a health hazard." The room was silent. People were actually looking concerned. She was winning. She was using science. "And so," Brenda concluded, "the board has voted unanimously to levy an emergency fine of $1,000 against Property 1422, Mr. Johnson, for the community nuisance violation, and to demand the immediate removal of the pond and the waterfowl. We are here tonight simply to inform you of the decision." She was steamrolling me. This wasn't a trial, it was a sentencing. The room was quiet. I saw a few people nod. And then I stood up. "Mark, no," Sarah whispered, grabbing my arm. "It's okay," I said. "I got this." "Mark," Brenda said, her eyes narrowing. "This is not an open forum. The board has decided." "Actually, Brenda, it is an open forum," I said, my voice ringing out in the quiet room. Bylaw 302. All HOA meetings, especially emergency meetings, must include a 30-minute open forum for homeowner comment. You put it in the newsletter yourself last spring. Brenda's face froze. I had her. I'd read the whole 300-page document. "Fine," she hissed. "The floor is open." I walked to the front. I didn't have a PowerPoint. I just had the truth. "Hi, everyone. I'm Mark. I live at 1422. You may know me as the Puddle guy, or more recently, the Duck guy." A few people chuckled. "Brenda, that was a fantastic presentation. The graphs, the pie chart, poop-to-lawn ratio. That's genius, really." Brenda was not amused. "But you're missing the point," I said, turning to the crowd. "You all know me. I'm not a bad neighbor. I'm just a guy who had a puddle, a low spot in my yard, and the HOA, Brenda, fined me for it." "It's a violation," Brenda snapped. "It was damp dirt, Brenda, but fine. I'm a good citizen. I tried to cure it. I put dirt on it. And then Brenda fined me again for the dirt. A $150 fine for a puddle, and the fix for the puddle." A murmur went through the room. "So yeah, I got a little creative, I'm not going to lie. I read the bylaws. I read the city ordinances. I built a 10-gallon micro pond that is, legally, an ornamental lawn decoration. I adopted 2 ornamental birds that are, legally, my pets. I have not broken a single rule." "It's a nuisance," Brenda shouted. "Is it?" I asked the room. "Is it really? A 90-decibel reading? Brenda, my lawnmower is 110 decibels. Your pool filter, which runs 24/7, is a constant 75. But we don't emergency fine you, do we?" I turned to the crowd. "Brenda says my ducks are a health hazard. I say, they're the neighborhood mascot. My kids love the ducks." A woman in the 3rd row, the one with the triplets, called out. "We've named them, Quackjack and Quack Jill." "Close," I said. "It's by law and ordinance." The room laughed. Then Mr. Henderson, the 80-year-old guy who always waves, stood up slowly. I rather like the quacking, Brenda," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "Reminds me of the old farm I grew up on. It's nice. It's life. Better than that fella's leaf blower at 8 a.m. on a Saturday." The leaf blower guy sank in his seat. "This is ridiculous," Brenda said, her voice high and tight. "The board has voted. The fine stands." "Does it?" I asked. I pointed to Bylaw 1.04, which I knew by heart. Because emergency fines over $500 must be ratified by a majority vote of the homeowners present at the emergency meeting. Brenda's face went white. She'd been so busy building her PowerPoint, she forgot her own rules. "All in favor," I called out, "of fining me $1,000 for my ornamental ducks." Brenda and the three nodders raised their hands. "All opposed?" A sea of hands went up. Sarah's was the first. The mom with the triplets. Mr. Henderson. Even the leaf blower guy. The vote wasn't even close. It was 30-4. The room was silent. Brenda looked at the divided crowd. She looked at her useless PowerPoint. She looked at me. I gave her a small, polite, "better luck next time" shrug. She banged her plastic gavel. This meeting is adjourned." She didn't run. She didn't storm off. She just deflated. She sat there, staring at a slide titled "Projected Poop Trajectory" as the entire neighborhood filed out, patting me on the back as they left. A month passed. The Great Puddle War of Whispering Pines, as Kevin called it, was over. The HOA dropped all the fines. I got a check in the mail for my overpayment, a crisp $150, with no note. The board quietly announced that the bylaws concerning ornamental birds and water features were under review by a new subcommittee that wouldn't meet until next spring, which in HOA speak means never. The micro pond was thriving. I'd accepted my new role as Duck Dad. I'd fixed the sprinkler line Kevin capped. I'd even gone back to Gus's Feed and Farm, and after enduring a solid 10 minutes of "I told you so" grunting, I bought a small solar-powered filter. "To keep the water clear, Brenda," I'd yelled across the street when I was installing it. "For the property values." I'm pretty sure I heard her slam a window. Bylaw and ordinance were no longer tiny yellow fluff balls. They were ducks. Adolescent, awkward, and still loud, but they were a permanent fixture. They were fat, happy, and the official mascots of the neighborhood. The triplets' mom brought them peas every Tuesday. Mr. Henderson would sit on his porch and just watch them. He said it was better than television. I was on my back porch, grilling burgers. It was a perfect Saturday. The smell of charcoal was in the air. Sarah was next to me, reading a book, her feet propped up. "You know," she said, not looking up from her page, "Bylaw's little tail waddle. It is kind of cute." "See?" I said, flipping a burger. "I told you, they're family. They add character." "You added character," she said, "and $200 in plumbing repairs. But I'll admit, you won. It's nice. It's peaceful." Bylaw let out a 90-decibel quack from the front yard. "It's mostly peaceful," she corrected. I was about to serve the food when I saw movement across the street. It was Brenda. She was landscaping. She was in her yard with a large plastic-wrapped object. I watched, mesmerized. She tore the plastic off and with a grunt heaved the object onto her lawn. It was a gnome. But it wasn't a small Mr. Henderson-style gnome. This thing was a monster. It was a 4-foot-tall ceramic nightmare, painted in garish colors, holding a fishing rod. It was, without a doubt, the ugliest, tackiest, most horrifying lawn ornament I had ever seen. She stepped back, admired it, and went inside, leaving it to stare blankly at my house. I just stared. Sarah had come over to see what I was looking at. "Oh, Beats," Sarah said. That's something." I said nothing. I just took a long, slow sip of my beer. A grin, the same terrible, beautiful grin from a month ago, started to spread across my face. "Mark," Sarah said, her voice low and warning. "No, don't." "What?" I said, feigning innocence. "I'm not doing anything. I'm just admiring her. Art." "Mark, I'm serious. You won. Let it go." "I am letting it go," I said, turning back to the grill. I paused. "I'm just saying, Bylaw 9.04. Ornamental lawn decorations are permitted without review so long as they do not exceed 24 inches in height." "Mark, that thing is 48 inches if it's an inch," I said, my voice full of sudden, civic-minded concern. "That's a flagrant violation, Sarah. It's a detriment to community property values." "Don't you dare," she said, trying to sound angry, but I could see the smile twitching at her lips. "I should go measure it," I said, picking up my spatula. "You know, just to be sure. For the bylaws." I took a bite of my burger, looking at the gnome. It was staring at me, and I was staring right back. The war wasn't over. It had just evolved.